Underneath it all is personal health, compassion, and planetary health. And so the core of Crazy Sexy Diet is it's a pH-balanced, anti-inflammatory, plant-based diet. It's also low glycemic. So I took these things because I know that they are the best things for people who are in need. So if you are in what I call a shit pickle, a health blank pickle, then you gotta hit it a little harder sometimes so that you can meet your body halfway, so that you can become an empowered participant in your healing. And that's the crux of Crazy Sexy Diet. So pH balance, what does that mean? That means that the body likes to be slightly alkaline. Alkaline foods come from the plant world. Acidic foods come from the animal world, and the laboratory world, and the process world, and the human world, right? So we try to eat more, we stack the odds in our favor, we make energy deposits instead of constant withdrawals with more alkaline foods, especially the greens and the veggies and things like that. How many of you have heard about pH a little bit? Oh, this is very good. Fantastic. So I started to research that and go deep into that, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And now the next connection, inflammation. Inflammation is the root cause of most, if not all, chronic diseases, right? Inflammation comes from what we're eating, what we're drinking, and what we're thinking. Inflammation is stress. It's stress. And alkaline foods tend to be the anti-inflammatory foods, where acidic foods are the inflammatory foods. So it's really easy, and we start to get this. And, like, for example, name some foods that create inflammation in the body. Dairy. Meat. What else? We yell it out. I know you know these things. Chicken. How about things like coffee? How about Twinkies? How about Hostess cupcakes? How about white bread? How about anything on the standard American diet? Salt? No, salt doesn't create inflammation. I mean, it can create tissue retention. Certainly white salt that is devoid of all minerals can definitely add to something like that. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is all connecting. Now let me add another big word to this. It's called epigenetics. Epigenetics is so freaking hot. It really is. Because epigenetics teaches us that our genes are not our destiny. Let me say that again. Our genes are not our destiny. And in this country, we hang a lot on genes. It's very unfortunate. We say, oh, you know, it ran in my family, so it's going to run into me. There's nothing I can do, so I might as well go to Dairy Queen. Really? Let's look at what ran in your family. Does breast cancer, heart disease, diabetes, and obesity run in your family, or does salami, donuts, pastries, right, hot dogs, does that run in your family? And now this can be very aggressive for some people, especially patients, because what that says is, wait a minute, are you saying I created this, I caused this? What are you saying, Kris? Is this my fault? And then there's a lot of, screw you, Kris, right? That's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that each and every one of us, we play an enormous part in our destiny. For example, only 5 to 10% of all cancers are genetic. So what's the other number? Let's do math. I hate it, but let's do it. 5 to 10%. So 90 to 95%. Diet, lifestyle, and we have to talk about the environment. And here's what's so cool and how we come back to it all being connected. We have exogenous toxins and endogenous toxins, right? The toxins that are around us, the toxins that are in us. And many of those toxins come from things like heavy metals, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, suicides. Where are we eating a lot of these substances? Like, where are we finding these substances? Well, certainly the factory farm system is notorious for antibiotics, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, suicides, steroids, you name it, hormones. I love when people get in an uproar about soy. Yeah, soy's bad. Soy's really bad. We know that. Really? How much estrogen is in dairy? How much estrogen is in dairy? I don't have kids. I have pregnant friends. They're tricky, right? Those hormones are tricky. So those cow ladies that are being kept pregnant all the time, you don't think they have an enormous amount of hormones flooding through their bodies that we are consuming, and we wonder why children get their periods at younger ages and are developing at younger ages, and we have like a rash of man boobs. That's how you get men's attention. You talk about erectile dysfunction and man boobs. I'm in. What do I have to do? We find these ways, right? And so what I realized is, oh my gosh, there's an inner and outer global warming taking place. Because I have rivers, I have streams, I have lakes, oceans, terrain. I have all of that. And I can see it all around me. And the more I pollute my body with certain foods, the more the environment is also polluted because of the nature of the production of those foods. And as somebody in my position, I won't let that happen in my body on my watch. So what does a day in the life of this diet look like? It's definitely to the next level. I will tell you that, because one of the things that I find missing sometimes in the vegan movement is vegetables. The root word of vegan and vegetarian is vegetable. And I often find people come up to me, or what some of my coaching clients will say, you know, I tried that. It didn't work for me. I got so fat and tired and zitty. Didn't work for me. Really, what were you eating? Well, I was eating pasta and muffins and sugar and there's all these treats and snacks and cakes and cookies. I was eating all that stuff. I said, were you eating any vegetables? No. So remember, it's a pH-balanced, anti-inflammatory, plant-based diet. We get our protein from all of the vegetables. You'll hear people say, I eat a varied plant-based diet. The word varied is the most important word, right? Because that's how we get all of the protein that we need. For those of you who are here and you're maybe like, well, I still have some questions, but maybe I'm afraid to ask, right? So a varied plant-based diet. Now, the most complete protein on the planet is probably the FedEx guy. Are you gonna eat him? No, he brings us good treats, especially around the holidays. He gives us packages and gifts, right? So we don't need to eat flesh to get complete proteins. We have all of the protein that we need in all of these plants. We don't need to eat them all at once. How many of you know what the recommended daily allowance is for protein? It's about 40 grams, so depending on your weight. So if you want to just roughly calculate this, because you're worried, because you're new and you still want numbers and you want to like make sure that you're going to be okay. So you take your weight and you roughly divide it by 3. This is the rough way to get there. So I weigh about 120 pounds. Technically it would be assumed that I need about 40 grams of protein. Now some pioneers in our movement, Dr. Campbell being one of them, would suggest that's still even a little bit too high. So guess how much the average American is consuming? About 100 to 120 grams of protein per day. Animal flesh is carcinogenic, it's highly acidic. Remember, the body likes to be slightly alkaline. Certainly things like flesh have dietary cholesterol, saturated fat. Something like milk has something called casein in it, which is the protein found in dairy. How many of you know this? This is great. I'm like speaking to the choir for the most part. Like, I got that point, Kris. Right? But what I didn't realize is all of these things affect cancer. Because there's something called IGF growth factor 1. And that growth factor is that wonderful factor that tells little cows, hey, grow! Well, guess what? It tells cells to rapidly grow and divide. You find that in dairy, and you also find that in sugar. Okay? So there's so much power in this lifestyle. There's so much power in plants. And just from the time that I've been doing what I've been doing, things have shifted drastically. I remember I spoke at one of my first hospitals, and it was a very big hospital, and I was on a panel, and I told my story, and I talked a lot more in depth about nutrition. And then the head of the hospital, in her white, very pressed coat, answered a question, and I was talking about this last night at dinner. And she said, oh, you know what, that is a myth. You can use cell phones. These were brain cancer patients, by the way. That's a myth. You know, cell phones are fine. And by the way, eat your hot dogs too, please. That's what she looked at me and said. And my mouth dropped, and I was silenced once. Once. And then now cut to 2011, and I'm teaching at Harvard on a regular basis. And the pushback that I got in the beginning is now, hey, next year would you give the med students a tour of the cafeteria so we could figure out what they should be eating? You know? The health movement is untapped. It's an unbelievable place to do the work that I do. And part of it is getting to doctors. And many doctors, they haven't changed their minds, and here's why. They haven't had a day of nutrition. If you have a foot problem, do you go to your eye doctor? No, you don't. That's ridiculous. So many patients who go in and they talk to their doctors and they say, you know, I got this book. I was at the hoedown and I got all these books and I'm learning all this stuff. What do you think? And they go there and they wait for the validation and the doctor says, that's ridiculous. The more people like me that are out there, the more revolutionaries like you that are out there and say, you know what? This is the way, and it is the only way. And let's bless him and send him to the light so you don't have to drag his tired ass around in your mind anymore. Because he has not had a day of nutrition in school, so he doesn't know, or she doesn't know. But now is our opportunity to not wait for change at the top down, okay? We need people like Jean, we need PCRM, we need all these amazing organizations to push legislation. But guess what? We're not going to sit back on our butts so that they can do all the hard work, right? We are the foot soldiers. And I'm hoping that every single one of you gets wickedly inspired by that and that you go home, you make Juice Not War, and you just like hug your kitty or something. Thank you so much.